Assalamu alaikum. If you were saying something, I don't know why my whole device is acting up. Allah musta'an. Okay, I don't need the word to be open. Don't need that. Don't need. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what that is. It was a snippet. That's what that is. All right. Bismillah. All right, let's go ahead and get الإقناع open, inshallah. أيوة ممتاز. Alhamdulillah, mumtaz. All right, let's go ahead and bring up where we left off. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. And we said we're going to start at wudu, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, here we go. This is where we're going to begin from bi'idhnillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen. Nabiyuna Muhammad. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Wa ba'd. Our brother said we stopped here. I'm loving his Shaykh Naqsh's use of ash-shamila, mashallah. Well, Suwak, I said that you're going to do that on your own, inshallah ta'ala. Tamam. So that was more of homework. Did you get a chance to read through it yet or no? No, but what I'll do is that I'll do a separate reading on the group, inshallah ta'ala, the Iqna group, and I'll read through it so we can touch base on it, inshallah ta'ala. Na'am. But I want to tell you this. Did I ever share with you the file known as al-wudu? Mumtaz jiddan jiddan. This file realistically, here we go. Everything about wudu can be found right here. So if we were to, if we were to just do as-siwak. Now, the nice thing about this would be, okay, I don't know why it's doing that. It doesn't want to search, but that's okay because we can always just pull up the word version of the same thing, right? And I usually use an index like this right here. So if we go down to the Sunan, right, if you have this, I might need to add the index system to everything. You'll see all of the Sunan, and then you'll come right down here to As-Siwak. Now, a lot of brothers, they like to use this because it's very simple and basic Arabic, very organized, and it has everything that our ashab said in the madhab. So definitely refer back to that. This seems to be around page 100 for Siwak, or 99. Use it as a study guide. Inshallah ta'ala, you'll find usefulness in it. And inshallah ta'ala, we might go over some points or share some points from it as we go through wudu today. All right, now we've taken wudu in the past, in other texts, in other settings, in other discussions. I sent the PDF for Mumtaz, and I'll resend it to in the group, okay? I'll make sure that I save the Word document just in case there have been minor updates every once in a while. But I'll go ahead and I'll send it again today, inshallah. So let's go ahead and read in here. I will, we'll refer back to that wudu file, inshallah ta'ala, just so we can see how to use it, bi'idhnillah. I am making one like it about salah. Now, bear in mind, these files are not meant to be a book. It's more of a study guide. It's everything that the school has ever said about the topic. Okay? He says, فصل في الوضوء وهو بضم الواو اسم للفعل. So saying wudu with a dhamma over the waw, this refers to the act itself. What is the act? وهو استعمال الماء في أعضاء مخصوصة وهو المراد هنا. It refers to utilizing water on certain parts of the body. And that's what we mean when we mention wudu here. He says, وَبِفَتْحِهَا, meaning saying wadu with a fatha, okay, then this refers to the water you are using. Tamam. وَهُوَ مَأْخُوذٌ مِنَ الْوَضَاءَةِ, meaning the whole concept of wudu comes from wada'a. And you can see this right here. See how I have the definitions, بالضم, بالفتح. Not only that, some have argued the opposite applies. Some says you can use the fatha and mean both things. Some said you can use the dhamma and mean both things, but those other three opinions there, they are weak. Tamam? He says, وَهِيَ الْحُسْنُ وَالنَّظَافَةِ وَلِلضِّيَاءِ مِنْ ظُلْمَةِ الذُّنُوبِ. The idea of wudu is to cleanse yourself from the sins and the darkness of sins. Tamam? He says, وَأَمَّا فِي الشَّرْعِ, but in fiqh, we utilize the term wudu to refer to acts or certain acts that begin with a niyyah, bin niyyah. If you're looking at the file, you'll see that shar'an, it's a set of certain acts with a certain niyyah done in a certain way. That's more of a complete collection of what they have said on that point. He says, قال الإمام وهو تعبدي لا يعقل معناه لأن فيه مسحا كلام جميل ولا تنظيف فيه. So Imam al-Haramain said that this act is ta'abbudi, meaning you and I cannot figure out why we do it. We do not understand why we do it. All that we do know is that we do it. Kalam Jamil. Now, there's another opinion that says it is ma'qul al-ma'na, meaning we can understand it. So if you look right here on the screen in the file, this will help you get a good insight of the whole debate and the whole discussion. We have two wajh on the topic. One says ma'qul, and that is the mu'tamad. The other one, al-wajh al-thani, number two, it says ta'abbudi, and that's weak. Okay, as you can see, Al-Khatib, it seems that he's leaning with this second opinion. It was also held by Shaykh al-Islam, Al-Izz ibn Abd salam, and others. All right, their argument goes as follows. You're wiping and you're not cleaning. You're washing, but you don't really need that much water. This does not seem to be an actual cleaning activity. Rather, it just seems as if it's more of a set of symbolic acts, ritualistic acts, that's all. The mu'tamad, however, as Ibn Hajar and the Ramli have stated, is that no, it's understood and we see exactly why we're doing it. First of all, you're going for prayer, so you need to cleanse yourself before you enter prayer. You're cleansing certain limbs, right? Al-Imam Al-Bujayrami, he said, and it makes sense it's those limbs because those are the limbs that we do things on a regular basis with, right? So on a regular basis, I utilize these limbs in my daily activities, good and bad. Alhamdulillah. Ibn Qasim al-Abbadi, he said, the issue that they kept on presenting, meaning Imam al-Haramain and others, saying that I'm wiping the head, I'm not cleaning. He said you could easily say to them, if you wipe it enough times, yes, you are. It's an interesting way to respond, but I personally just like what Imam al-Bujayrami points out. We utilize these limbs, your hands, right? Your arms, your face, your head, somewhat, not a whole lot. So it makes sense that you're just going to wipe it, right? Wash your feet. These are the limbs that you use. Again, as I said, good and bad. It's for your daily activities. So to raise your status, to make you worthy standing in before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your ibadah, you do these acts. And they do make sense. Okay? There's your debate. I'm not going to be doing this, obviously, on every single mas'ala along the way. I just want you to be able to see that so you have an easy way to go back and see what the debate is. It's clearly stated. Everything is color-coded, inshaAllah ta'ala. He says, وَكَانَ وُجُوبُهُ مع وجوب الصلوات الخمس كما رواه ابن ماجه وفي موجبه أوجه. So it became an obligation when prayers became an obligation. Many scholars say, well, how could prayers become an obligation and the whole story happened that night? Okay, well, even if we were to say, all right, it happened at night, the prayers of that day became an obligation, they can't pray them until the training of those prayers actually come into effect when Jibreel came to teach the Prophet ﷺ the times of prayer. Okay? He says, وَمُوجِبِهِ يعني, what makes it at a certain moment in time an obligation upon an individual to pray. He says, أحدها الحدث وجوبا موسعا. So there's one opinion that says that as soon as you break your wudu, you need to do what? You need to make wudu. When? Well, realistically, there's leniency when it comes to that, okay? 2, the second opinion is that it becomes an obligation upon you when you want to get up and pray. And 3, it's both of them. You can see it on the screen, the details. Number 1, which is the mu'tamad, right? And he tells us right here, Al-Khatib, he says, وَهُوَ الْأَصَحُّ كَمَا فِي التَّحْقِيقِ وَشَرْحِ مُسْلِمٍ. See? Number 3, he is doing tasheeh to this opinion. If we go back here, this is the opinion, meaning both, as stated by Al-Mutawalli in Al-Tatimma, Al-Nawawi in Al-Tahqiq and Sharh Muslim, and Ibn Hajar stated it clearly, and many others. The second is as soon as you get into hadath. But they don't like that opinion. Why don't they like that opinion? Because there's nothing in the Sharia that says, sorry for my bluntness, but you pass gas, therefore you need to go ahead and make wudu. No one said this ever. Ever. However, they all did say, well, if it's time for prayer and you don't have your wudu, then you have to do what? You have to do wudu. Why didn't they only keep that one? Well, because if you have your wudu, it's not wajib. So to say when you go to pray, you have to make wudu, that's not accurate. You need to combine the two, and that's how that opinion became the authentic opinion. Tamam? Now, he said, وَلَهُ, meaning wudu, شُرُوطٌ وَفُرُوضٌ وَسُنَنٌ. I do want to share one more thing, and then I'm going to stop coming back to this. I think, where did I put it? Okay, right here. If you look throughout our works, you'll see that they'll divide up wudu as having shurut, sunan, makruhat, right? Furud or arkan, and so on. Alhamdulillah. All right. Now, they'll divide things up differently. So they might just say the arkan and the sunan. And then in the sunan, they'll say don't do, meaning the makruhat, right? And then they'll only mention the arkan and won't mention the shurut. Like Imam al-Nawawi did in Minhaj al-Talibin, he didn't mention the shurut. So you're reading and you're like, wait a minute, where's the shurut of wudu? Well, isn't this a problem? Not really necessarily, because Imam al-Kurdi, he actually writes a book on this where he says, here's the shurut of wudu from Minhaj, that you don't see it because he didn't specify and say, okay, here's your list of shurut. What Imam al-Nawawi did is that he mixed it in with the arkan itself because they are connected. All right, and I'll bring up the list of shurut in a moment. So let's get back to Al-Khatib here. He says, فَشُرُوتُهُ, meaning shurut al-wudu, وَكَذَا الْغُسْلِ, and the ghusl is the same. The shurut are pretty much the same between these, between tayammum as well. The sunan overall are pretty much very, very similar, except in a few things here and there. And the adhkar and stuff like that are the same between all three. He says, ماء مطلق ومعرفة أنه مطلق ولو ظنا وعدم الحال. Okay, well, let's stop right there. And we can go back here since Sheikh Nicholas likes this idea. We'll go ahead and we won't do it again with everything, but we'll do with some. See, look, the first one is your need of al-ma' al-mutlaq walaw dhannan. And what they mean by walaw dhannan is at the second black bullet point right here, it says وَسَوَاءٌ تَيَقَّنْ أَوْ غَلَبَ عَلَى ظَنِّهِ عِنْدَ الاشتباه. Meaning, when you turn on the faucet, could the water come out problematic? Yes. But normally when you turn on the faucet, you're expecting what? Clean water. And since you're expecting clean water, you don't need to take it to a lab and check. You just know this water in the faucet is good, or running water is good, right? And that's it. Or what if you're having a debate between two buckets? Well, based upon your assumption, that would be suffice as to declare that that water is ma mutlaq. Look at the second bullet point, the hollow one, or the first hollow one. It says فَلَوْ رَأَى الْمَاء وَلَمْ يَتَطَرَّقْ إِلَى النَّظَرِ فِيهِ اسْتِنَادًا لِلْأَصْلِ جَازَ ذَكَرَهُ الْكُرْدِي. As you can see, throughout this file, I'm always mentioning who said what. If I don't mention, it's just because it's common knowledge within the school. No one differs with it. So right here, Imam al-Kurdi tells us, if the person sees water, doesn't really think about, is this water suitable, but because normally it is, that's enough. They don't need to do anything else. Tamam? And then after that, I'm just speaking about some people, they debated on whether this should even be a shart or not, because water itself, is it a condition? I mean, you should say having water maybe is a condition, but the water itself, is the water itself a condition? Not really. And saying it will throw other problems into tayammum, but we won't get into that for now. Next, he says, وَعَدَمُ الْحَائِلِ. عَدَمُ الْحَائِلِ means there's nothing on the skin stopping the water from getting there. Because if someone comes and says, I washed my arm, but I have this thing on me, well, hold on for a moment, because there, by default, unless that's part of your arm, right, we will not say or state that you have washed that limb. You can call it that all you want, that's fine, but unless you really do that, we never call that washing the limb. So say you wash your arm, and then you come and say, I don't know, there's this piece of dirt on my hand. Well, right then and there, we're going to tell you, stop, you never washed your arm. Oh, but I did, I ran it under the water, and I ran, but there's dirt on your arm. Okay, now, if that becomes part of your limb, now that changes things, all right? So that's your basic premise of this shart. Now, your most common issue is going to be what? Is going to be dirt under the nails. All right. Is dirt under the nails a problem? Yes or no? The answer is yes. It needs to be cleaned. If your hands or your fingers always have dirt under the nails, you're going to need to keep your nails very, very, very short. If you do a lot of planting and work in plants a lot like I do, they're always going to have to be short. Okay, well, is there an exception? Okay, if you look right here, the second bullet point under number 12, Al-Imam al-Kurdi quotes Al-Imam al-Ziyadi in his explanation of Al-Muharrar. Al-Imam al-Ziyadi, he actually has a famous Hashiyah called Hashiyat al-Ziyadi, but he also has a large explanation he wrote on Al-Muharrar. We have it in manuscript form, but sadly it's never been published yet. He said that this issue of dirt under the nails, مِمَّا تَعُمُّ بِهَا الْبَلْوَى, meaning that it's such a problem that we need to start seeking an exception for it. He said you'll rarely find anyone that doesn't have some sort of dirt under their nails. He says to the point where Ibn Qasim said that dirt under the nails does not stop the tahara from being valid. In other words, they're saying that if there's dirt under the nails, the wudu could actually still be labeled as valid. He's saying, but we're not speaking about something that's easy to remove. If it's easy to remove, then you must remove it. He said, Al-Qaffal, he mentioned that too much dirt under the nails or on the skin would not stop a person's wudu from being valid, nor would touching it nullify the wudu, meaning if the opposite sex, she had dirt on her hand and your hand went onto the dirt, not onto the hand, that wouldn't break wudu. What does he mean by this? He's going to go ahead and quote what Ibn Hajar said, and that is, Al-Qaffal was speaking about so much of something, a foreign substance on the skin or on the body, to the point, right, that either it's looked at as part of it or it's so much that it is not looked at as being part of the skin. So you have two states. Imagine the skin starts to swell and expand, and now it looks like you have this additional piece of skin on you. Well, that's part of you, right? But then imagine a handful of cement on the skin, and you sit there and you leave it until it hardens. Well, that's not part of you. If hypothetically something were to happen where it was on the skin for such a long time that it can no longer be removed, then yes, at some point you could argue that it's part of you. How would a gargist with hands full of oil or alcohol including under the nails? They'd wash it to the best of their ability. If it's oil, then they'll have to use something that would help remove the oil, although to a certain extent they will allow it. Like if you were to put oil onto your skin and you rub it in so well, you're moisturizing. At some point, even though we know it's there, it's not really 100% there anymore. It's been absorbed. So you're gonna look at how much is there. As for alcohol, you can just rinse that off. I mean, that's easy, inshallah. And then I break it down into different opinions. Oh, this is a really nice addition. If you have, like, say, a splinter, a piece of wood went into your hand and you can't get it out, all right, and it's deep in, it's not just under the skin, no, it's punctured deep and you can't get it out for some reason. Imam al-Zarkashi said the prayer would not be valid if you keep that in. Why? Because you cannot pray if you're in contact with something touching filth, right? Well, that piece of wood, for example, is touching the blood inside of you. Tamam. Al-Imam al-Sumhudi, he commented on this and he said, no, we already agreed that small amounts of blood, and even in certain cases, maybe a little bit more than small amount, wouldn't actually be a problem because that would be forgiven, right? As some people came and said, well, the qiyas that Imam Zarkashi used was not actually valid because he used tattoos, old tattoos, not modern day tattoos, where you're actually blocking the blood and forcing the blood to do things under the skin. Imam Zarkashi's qiyas here wouldn't be valid because a splinter, for example, I mean, it's not even a tattoo, right? It's not the same thing, so it's not going to work. Well, what about having scabs? Like, you scratched up your skin, you have a scab that developed. That doesn't belong there. Do you need to remove it? No, you don't. You don't. Imam al-Mawardi literally said that very, very clearly, and everyone quoted him. Everyone agreed. No one ever objected that, okay, you have to remove a scab that developed, all right? Anyway, let's get back to our book here. He says, وعدم المنافي من نحو حيض ونفاس في غير أغسال الحج ونحوها. نعم. ومس ذكر. Not doing anything that by default nullifies wudu, like having hayd, like having postpartum bleeding, right? Like touching your private area that that just by touching breaks off wudu altogether in the first place. وعدم الصارف ويعبر عنه بدوام النية. Sometimes عدم المنافي and عدم الصارف get mixed up. عدم الصارف, what they mean by it is that your intention remains valid. عدم المنافي means there's no presence of something that normally nullifies and negates the wudu altogether. وإسلام, نعم, the person needs to be what? They need to be Muslim, all right? And there's a lot of other additional details that come in with that. Come on. The kafir asli, wudu will never be considered valid from him, all right? The murtad, the wudu that he did, okay, before he became a murtad is valid. If he does ridda and then comes right back right after, his wudu is still valid. Tamam? His wudu is still valid. I think that's enough. We won't go deeper than there for that, inshallah ta'ala. وَتَمْيِيزٌ, and tamyiz, it means that the individual knows how to eat, drink, cleanse themselves after relieving themselves. Those are the measurements that we utilize for tamyiz. He says, وَمَعْرِفَةُ كَيْفِيَةِ الْوُضُوءِ كَنَظِيرِهِ الْآتِ فِي الصَّلَاةِ, knowing what wudu is and knowing what you're doing. وأن يغسل مع المغسول جزءا يتصل بالمغسول. نعم. When you are washing, you want to go a little bit beyond the boundaries of that limb. Which brings us to an important point. As we know, wiping the neck in wudu is a bid'ah. Even though some of our scholars said, no, it's not a bid'ah, the majority said it is bid'ah. However, washing your neck is sunnah. How is this? Because when you're washing your face, you're going to what? Wind up washing a little bit of your neck and a little bit of your head. Tamam? The fuqaha are very detailed. When they say kada is bid'ah, it doesn't mean, well, if wiping is bid'ah, washing must be. No, it only means wiping it is considered bid'ah. There's more to it. ويحيط به يتحقق به استيعاب المغسول. Why do we go beyond the boundaries of a limb? To make sure that we've gotten it with the entire limb. وتحقق المقتضي للوضوء. تحقق المقتضي, sometimes referred to as تحقق المقتضى, I mean the same thing. It means that you had a valid intention based upon valid reasonings, and you performed the act as you ought to, and everything was done and meets the rules. So this is what I like to call the overall condition. If you did everything for the right reasons and you did everything the right way, then you've met everything that's needed from you, and then therefore your wudu would be valid. He says, with that understanding, now we come to another set of problems. فَلَوْ شَكَّ هَلْ أَحْدَثَ أَمْ لَا. If an individual was not certain, did they break their wudu or no, to begin with, and then they made wudu and unclear on what state they were in, he says, لَمْ يَصِحَّ وضوءه على الأصح. His wudu will not be considered valid. Our ashab, they said there's a solution for this problem. If you're that confused on do I need to have a wudu or not, right? They said break it. Literally break it. Pass gas. Go to the bathroom. Right? Why? So that way you can give yourself certainty. This issue will translate into a whole set of issues of, well, out of precaution, what should I do? And well, if you say do it, but yet at the same time we say it doesn't really count, then why are you telling people to do it? And this has caused a lot of debate between what Imam Nawawi said and Imam al-Isnawi argued for or against. He says, وَأَنْ يَغْسِلَ مَعَ الْمَغْسُولِ مَا هُوَ مُشْتَبِهٌ بِهِ. Sometimes people are born with 6 fingers or 5 fingers and a little nub of something. Treat it as a finger and wash it as is. Don't treat it as if it's something foreign. Now they take this to a little bit to the extreme and they say, فَلَوْ خُلِقَ لَهُ وَجْهًا. If the person had 2 faces, meaning 2 heads, or 2 hands, meaning in and around that same joint. Because if you have say someone was born with a 3rd hand on their thigh, that's not, even though it's a hand, we don't call it a hand in a sense. We're not going to tell them they need to go and wash that when they're washing their hands. But if it's off the same joint or nearby joint, like the elbow joint, مثلا, we're going to say you're going to go ahead and wash it because it's in that proximity of where the hand would normally be. And you might hear some of these things and say, well, wait a minute, that's weird things. Well, they're out there, trust me. وَاشْتَبَهَ الْأَصْلِيُّ بِالزَّائِدِ. يعني, say a person has a 3rd hand and it's next to one of his hands, meaning off of one of those joints, and he uses it perfectly normal, like as if it was a regular hand. Now, aside from some people probably saying, all right, that'll be very interesting to have, sometimes this can cause, and I've seen it cause, confusion where the individual, you ask him, well, where are your 2 hands? And he doesn't point to the 2 normal hands. He points to one of them and then the other one that's off of the joint in a different way. And you ask them why, and they're saying, well, when I grab something with my hands, that's where my focus shifts. The normal hand on the joint over there, I can use it, but it's not as strong, and it's like my mind, when I'm going to grab something, I don't use that hand. I've seen this. So then the question then begs itself. Well, when I tell him to wash his hands, which ones does he wash? He's going to wash all three in that case. Okay. He says, وَيَزِيدُ وُضُوءُ صَاحِبِ الضَّرُورَةِ. نعم. That's like a person with continuous leakage, whether it's istihada, random bleeding that usually happens to some women, or an elderly person who has leakage of urine or something else, right? As they say in America, you go from Pampers to Depends, right? Even adults might get back into wearing diapers. They're going to have unique rules that pertain to them. From these rules is بِاشْتِرَاطِ دُخُولِ الْوَقْتِ وَلَوْ ظَنًّا. They're going to only need to prepare for the prayer once the time of the prayer has actually entered, because realistically we know they shall never be fully 100% for the salah, whether it's our sister with istihada or someone that has continuous leakage that he just can't control. Then we have an understanding here, right? They will never have full tahara. They won't. It's just not possible, right? Does this mean that they're never going to pray or do things? No, they're going to do everything. Actually, they have exceptions. But since this is a necessity, the exception rules won't become valid for them until the time has begun. That's when they're going to start getting their preparations for wudu. They can't do it before because they're never going to actually be truly clean. All right? وَلَوْ ظَنًّا, just to the best of their ability. He says, وَتَقَدَّمَ الْإِسْتِنْجَاءُ, all right, or وَتَقَدُّمْ الْإِسْتِنْجَاءُ, meaning that what they're going to start with after the time enters is that they're going to do full istinja. وَالتَّحَفُّظُ حَيْثُ احْتِيجَ إِلَيْهِ. التحفظ means that, well, if they're going to use some sort of inserting system like a tampon for females, or just padding like a diaper for females and males, especially the seniors, right? They might use adult diapers. Full cleanse, put on that padding, that security, right? And then immediately after that, they make wudu. وَالْمُوَالَاةُ بَيْنَهُمَا وَبَيْنَ الْوُضُوءِ. And then they go ahead and they pray immediately. So, al-muwala bayna al-wudu and the salah. Many of our ulama, they say this is what they're going to do. They're going to wait for the time to enter. Okay? Then once the time has entered, they're going to start istinja. And they're going to have muwala between that istinja. Then they're going to make wudu. Then they're going to put the padding, right? What we call tahaffuz or hash. And they're going to have muwala between the istinja and the tahaffuz. And then after the tahaffuz, they're going to make wudu. And they're going to have muwala between the tahaffuz and the wudu. And then in the wudu, they're going to have muwala between all the acts. That is a rukn for them, not for everyone else. Then in between, from the wudu and the salah, they're going to have muwala, I mean no breaks in between, and they're going to pray immediately. Tamam? And we'll see more about muwala inshallah ta'ala. He says, وَأَمَّا فُرُوضَهُ فَذِكْرُهَا أو فذكرها بقوله وفروض الوضوء جمع فرض وهو والواجب مترادفان, meaning that wajib and fard, and we can add in there rukn. So fard, wajib, rukn, they all mean the same thing for us, except for in the chapter of Hajj. We make a small separation between the fard and the wajib, because those acts that we call wajib can be remedied, can be corrected with a certain set of acts, as opposed to the fara'id, they can't. That's the only reason we do it there. Some of our ashab have been trying to take us out of using that term and just simply calling them ab'ad, because that's what they technically are, but even that might be problematic to a certain extent, because a ba'd, you don't have to do anything to remedy. If you miss sujood as-sahw, then you've missed sujood as-sahw. That's it. Situation's over. In Hajj, that's not really the case. He says, إلا في بعض أحكام الحج كما ستعرفه إن شاء الله تعالى هناك. وقوله ستة خبر فروض زاد بعضهم سابعا وهو الماء الطهور. Some people added in, some of our ashab added in الماء الطهور when it comes to the arkan, and I think I might have added it here in the file. I think I did. Let me just double check. I think it's all the way down at the bottom. I'll be able to see that from here probably. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. I guess I did not mention it here. I thought I did. No, I didn't mention it here. Again, the file, that this file of wudu is realistically, it's not something that I authored. It's just something that I gathered from the actual books themselves. So it's not a tasnif, it's a collection. That's it. It's not my own words, يعني. He said قال في المجموع والصواب أنه شرط كما مر. So no, it's not. That's why he's responding to it right here. That no, the correct understanding. Oh, you know what? I did mention it in the shurut. Because remember we spoke about al-ma' al-mutlaq? Here we go. See, وصوب في المجموع كونه شرط بخلاف التراب في التيمم وعده بعضه. Ibn Surayj is the one that considered it a rukn. That's why I didn't have that. I left it right there. Because ma mutahhir here just means ma mutlaq as well. Tamam? So no, we don't consider that correct. Jamil. He says, واستشكل بعد أو بيعد التراب ركنا في التيمم. In tayammum, we say that the dirt is a rukn. Alright? Why? Because you have to seek the dirt. He said, وأجيب, يعني those that utilize that, which was Ibn Surayj, to consider water from the arkan here, they responded to them and they said, no, tayammum is tahara darura. It's not a normal tahara, so it's a little bit unique. And some didn't even like that. So if you see actually right here, I didn't even show an answer because there is no suffice answer aside from that answer, right? That, oh, well, tayammum is unique, so we had to do it there. So I left it here because there is no final good enough answer. So if you look at these two right here, they have no answers to them. Tamam. Look, and this one, this is one that Imam al-Isnawi quoted, the second one right here. This is another problem. They said they had an issue, or some had an issue with saying that dirt is an actual fard or rukn of tayammum. Why? Because tayammum is arad. What does he mean by arad here? That's from ilm al-kalam, when we say things are either jawhar or arad, an actual thing, or more of a state, a characteristic of something. Realistically, when you look at tayammum, it's an arad, meaning it's a ritualistic act. There's nothing that you really gain out of it except for going through the motions, right? It's nothing physical that you can observe and say, well, I washed this. There's no washing here. So Imam al-Isnawi, he quotes this. He says that some said, well, yani, some had an issue. Tayammum is arad, but turab is a jawhar. turab is a jawhar, it's a substance, right? But tayammum itself is just simply a state. This objection is very, very silly, and I'm going to tell you why it's very silly. Because if half of the Shafi'i school already said that wudu is ta'abbudi, right, meaning it's something we cannot understand, then this objection doesn't work for them, because they already said that it's more ritualistic. Now you might say, well, if they said it's ritualistic, wouldn't it be the same thing? Yes. But again, no one made that objection. So those that upheld that wudu is more of a ritual, no one ever said to them, well, wait a minute, that doesn't work. Why not? Because water is a jawhar, and now you're arguing that wudu is symbolic. You're arguing that wudu is a arad. No one ever said that. Ever. So for someone very far from the mutaakhirin to come and object with this, say, well, wait a minute, this would be an objection there. That makes no sense. Now, unless you can come and say, oh, but those that said that wudu was symbolic did not say that water was a rukn. Think again. Ibn Surayj, it is said that he said it was symbolic. So, yeah, if you're going to object, if whoever came up with this objection from the mutaakhirin, they're going to need to think through with this a lot better. In addition, that's not even a valid statement. Let's be honest, salah itself might be a ritualistic act. Do you understand? I mean, what do you understand from it? It's ritualistic, right? Right. And you who do the act and act it out are made up of jawahir. You see, the objection makes no sense, because it's very normal for you to utilize jawahir or a'rad to perform things that might only be a'rad. I'll show you another one that might help you understand it even better. Satr al-awra. What is it? Realistically, it's a state. It's a state that you're trying to do what? Trying to maintain. That makes it an arad. But in order to do it, guess what you need? You need a jawhar. So in order to fulfill a state that's an arad, you need a substance to utilize to cover yourself, right? Therefore, this whole objection right here, I think it's just one of those brain twisters, brain freeze twisters. You just sit back, oh, let me think about that for a moment, and then you actually get nowhere. Allahu a'lam. I think it's an interesting one, nevertheless. Anyway, he says, وَالْأَوَّلُ مِنَ الْفُرُوضِ النِّيَّةِ لرفع حدث عليه أي رفع حكمه لأن الواقع لا يرتفع. This goes back to trying to determine what the definition of a hadath actually is. Tamam. And once you try to determine what its definition is, this is going to impact your understanding of what are you actually doing with wudu. And let me go ahead and I have it here somewhere, but let me go ahead and just open it up from my own little commentary and notes on Bushra al-Karim. Here we go. Let me go to, and FYI, if you use Word a lot, definitely utilize the navigation system. It's an amazing system and tool to have. And if you're wondering something, these types of brackets right here, these types of brackets right here, it means that that's not what the author said. That's the person who owns the file, yani, has added in. Okay, so if we go down right here, here's the definitions of tahara. And then if we go down right here, we have the definitions. Here's one, and here's another of hadath. Hadath, right, is al-amr al-i'tibari, al-qa'im bil-a'dha, al-mani' صحة الصلاة or من صحة الصلاة حيث لا مرخص. It is a state that happens to your body or to your body parts or to you that stops you from praying, because if it does take place and you do enter that state, you do not have a murakhas. You don't have an allowance that allows you to do that act. That's one understanding of what hadath is. Another one is al-man' al-mutarattib ala dhalik. Or the term hadath refers to that which is blocking you from performing the act. Not the state, no, but rather the cause of the state, the blocker itself. Okay, meaning hadath asghar, hadath akbar, hadath awsat, etc. All right, okay. Now, when you keep that in mind and you have that, that understanding in place, now let's go back. What are we going to do? What are we trying to do? The first is niyat رفع حدث عليه أي رفع حكمه. So we're trying to lift that state. لأن الواقع لا يرتفع, because realistically we're not, there's no real state. It's not like a bucket of slime was put over you and you're trying to remove it. It's more of, okay, you're good to go or you're not good to go. So since you're not good to go, we want to make you good to go by changing your status. And that's what the wudu is there for. وَذَلِكَ كَحُرْمَةِ الصَّلَاةِ. So the salah would be basically haram upon all unless they have taken the appropriate steps. He says, وَلَوْ لِمَاسِحِ الْخُفِّ. Even if we're right now look at it in a very simple way, wiping the khuf might change the state. Kalam Jameen. So there's no real state that's being shifted, nothing that's actually being removed. It's more of a state changing or the status of a state changing. لأن القصد من الوضوء رفع المانع, because the whole idea of wudu is to lift that which is stopping you. فإذا نواه فقد تعرض للمقصود. So if the person intends it, then they have done what they ought to do in order to handle this issue. قال وخرج بقولنا عليه. He said in the beginning there, he said what? لرفع حدث. Look right here. لرفع حدث عليه. What? Why did he say عليه? He said, we said عليه, so that way, if, for example, the person intends that which is not upon him. Is there an issue? Yes. Like, for example, a person has relieved himself, he urinated. Okay, he did not sleep. But then when he went to go and make wudu, he intended to lift the state of what? Sleep. If he did this deliberately, like he's literally standing there knowingly, he didn't sleep. but he's intending to lift the state of sleep, then this would not be accepted from him. Tamam. أو غالطا, meaning he made a mistake, then it would be acceptable. Why? Because hadath, as we said, is what is amrun i'tibari, meaning it's not something physical. What does this mean? This means it's a state that a person gets into for one reason or the other. But since it's a state, it's more of a block concept, meaning once you enter it, right, regardless of how you got there, you're in it. So if someone were to make a mistake and mention, we'll just say that there's 10 ways to get in there, and mentions number 2 instead of number 3 by accident, it's not really going to matter, because 1 through 10 are all part of that which is in the block. This is important to understand, because this is why some fuqaha will say niyatu raf'i hadathin, as opposed to saying niyatu raf' al-hadath, like Imam al-Nawawi did. Okay, if we were to, we can go ahead and open up the Minhaj, for example, and we'll let it just load on its own. Where'd it go? Oh, there we go. So that's loading up. We'll see how he actually changed the wording. And let me see if I can go open up al-Muharrar too real quick. All right. If it so decides. Oh, well, I don't want the manuscript. There we go. All right. But let me read this next segment, and then we'll look at those two real quick. So he says, وَضَابِطُ مَا يَضُرُّ الْغَلَطُ فِيهِ وَمَا لَا يَضُرُّ. Now, the correct method to regulate mistakes in the niyyah, right? Things that would cause an impact and things that won't. My minhaj is, yep, this one right here. My minhaj is unique, yes. And I don't mean unique just because it's mine, but it's because of my sheikh's narration. See, this is actually the narration. See, I say biriwayat. It's the narration of my sheikh, Sheikh Salim al-Khatib, right? From his teacher, Sheikh Fadl Fadl, rahimahullah ta'ala. Okay. Is there differences between this minhaj and others? Yes. If we go right there in the beginning, actually. Yep, right here. See that word right there? لكن في حجمه كبر. If we go to almost every other copy that's ever been done for minhaj, they all say kibarun. But Sheikh Salim, his narration is kubrun. A lot which impact. No, they're not really that drastic. As a matter of fact, if we go, Allahumma salli sayyidina Muhammad, it's not really a whole lot. If I open up my minhaj work, Allahumma salli sayyidina Muhammad, where do I have it? Actually, since I have this right here, look right here on the screen. See this? Maybe not that clear, right? It's actually not that bad. I don't remember where they what they utilized. But look, so these are the 3 main narrations. First one is my teacher, Sheikh Salim al-Khatib's narration, right? The next one is Dar al-Minhaj, that's based upon the Ihsa narration, that's based upon the earliest manuscripts that we actually have. The third one right here is the Egyptian narration of Minhaj, and that goes through Imam al-Ghamrawi, the author of As-Siraj, and that's what Bassam al-Jabi utilized as his primary source. And realistically, when you look at all of the manuscripts, all of the versions, it always goes down to these three right here. Okay. So if we go right here in and this first one right here is just the eldest manuscript. And the reason why I have it here, okay, is that you'll be able to see that Dar al-Minhaj is relying on the eldest manuscripts, while Dar al-Fiqh, I don't remember right off the head which one they relied on. I don't remember, sadly, right now. I'll have to double check my notes, inshallah. I have it written down. I just don't have it memorized right off the back of my head. So then you can see Sheikh Salim's, right? And then you can see the Egyptian one that varies. It's more of like, it's the same or closer to the original manuscripts with slight variances. I don't know the justification for their variances in the Egyptian narration. If they had something documented at some point for their differences from the other two, I don't know. Things that match the other two, well, okay, it makes sense. My teachers, actually, I have the Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, I actually have the manuscripts that my sheikh didn't know even existed. He just knew that what he took from his teacher and he took from his teacher, this is how they narrated the text. So it was so interesting when I started to collect all of the manuscripts that I actually found several copies that match up with my teacher's narration verbatim. Like, for example, right here. So if you look on the screen, right, look how they wrote that word, kubrun, with a dhamma over the kaf, exactly like my teacher narrated in his. And when I showed it to my Sheikh Salim, he was like, subhanallah, I didn't even know that there was actual manuscripts left of our chain. Look, here's a second one. Same thing. Dhamma over the kaf, sukoon over the ba, right? Kubrun. They match. I found 4 manuscripts, very old, hundreds of years old, that match exactly what my teacher took verbally from his teacher. Kalam Jameel, subhanallah. Very, very interesting. But as you can see, the other differences right here. فإن جمع فبلغ قلتين. In Dar al-Minhaj, فإن جمع قلتين. Doesn't really change a whole lot. Again, if you take them all, maybe a handful of them cause a difference in the meaning, but it's nothing major. Look at this one. ولو تغير به فطهور. كلام جميل. ولا تغير به فطهور. Dar al-Minhaj says ولا تغير فطهور. ولو أغبره بتنجسه. In Dar al-Minhaj ولو أغبر بتنجسه. Very minor differences. وعند خروجه, my teacher. وخروجه, see, without the عند. وشرط الحجر ألا يجف النجس. وشرط الحجر ألا يجف النجس, with a fatha over the jim. فإن لم ينقي لا أصبعه في الأصح. لا أصبعه في الأصح. Very minor differences. And funny enough, some have even argued that some of them are dialect in nature when you think about them. Now, it's possible, but at the end of the day, I have manuscripts for both. Yes, Dar al-Minhaj is based upon the eldest manuscript, which is from 736. Okay, but That's not all Imam al-Nawawi. What do I mean? I mean that Imam al-Nawawi only did tashkil on maybe a third of the book. The rest was done by al-Maqdisi and al-Hayti. But many earlier scholars didn't agree with some of those renditions of al-Maqdisi and al-Hayti. What you have in the eldest manuscript is that. Okay, well, why did Dar al-Minhaj vary from the original manuscript in certain positions? Because they relied on the 745 ihsa edit of al-Maqdisi and al-Hayti's work. So they said, well, wait a minute, no, that's wrong, it should be like this. No, that's wrong, it should be like that. And that's the only variances that you'll find between that and them. Now let's become a Minhaj class. If we were to compile the most authentic phrases, could we have an ultimate version? Or would it still be considered fabricated? Well, I mean, fabricated? No. But what do you mean the most authentic phrases? Because وَلَوْ أَغْبَرَهُ versus وَلَوْ أَغْبَرَ, what would be the most authentic phrase? They're both correct. Now, I want to get to the ultimate copy, all right? And there's a solution. And the solution is Imam al-Nawawi's copy himself. His copy was last seen by Ibn Hajar, al-Ramli, al-Khatib, and a few others. Suyuti mentions that he saw it. Sakhawi said that he saw it, and it was in Medina, in a library in Medina called al-Mahmudiyya. But after certain people took over certain areas, manuscripts were removed. Now, yes, the Ottomans did try to get a portion out when they felt like they were losing control, and they took a big amount to Istanbul. This is true. But they indexed them very thoroughly. They don't have it. The rest were divided up between the new modern Islamic universities in Saudi Arabia. Still looking. And I have 3 professors, they're Turks, that are always in manuscripts there in Istanbul. They're looking day and night for me as they're doing their other work. So if it comes up there, I'm pretty sure that it's not in Turkey. Okay, I'm pretty sure. Because they're very pro-Hanafi. So they indexed everything painfully. Literally. All right, and they're probably, between them and Al-Azhar, they're probably the earliest people to index what they have. They don't have it. They really don't. And they have plenty of Shafi'i fiqh work. They don't have that. I honestly don't think it's in Medina. I think it was destroyed by accident. Or maybe not, but I think by accident. Why do I think it was destroyed? When the Turks took things out, they only left behind things that they just could no longer carry at that time. They weren't looking at titles, they were piling and going. In the process of one of these final shipments leaving from Medina, they got into a fight with some people that we will decide not to name right now. Things were lost. Not in the wagons, but in the process. We've never gotten a list of that which was destroyed. Now, we'll be honest, neither side deliberately ever destroyed a manuscript. That never happened. Even if it had something in there that did not agree with their said ideology or theology. Okay. Well, what happened then? Qadr Allah ma sha'a fa'al. But we're still looking. And I have people on both ends of the spectrum looking. because we all want to see it, all right? And it means a lot. But Ibn Hajar, Al-Ramli, Al-Khatib, even Al-Suyuti, Ibn Qasim Al-Abbadi, and several others corrected their copies based upon Imam Nawawi's copy himself. This is why I have another side project. I mean, but with age, I don't think I'll ever be able to get it completely done. So it's more of wishful thinking. So the idea is to go into each one of the shuruh and actually get the segments, right, that the scholars themselves has said, oh, the correct way to write this word is this, or like that. Like, see, look at this one. Now, this is from the Daqa'iq al-Minhaj, which is good. But if you go to like right here, look at this. قال السيوطي in التاج كذا بخطه بحذف اللام والصواب إثباتها لتدل على العهد الذهني. كلام جميل. So, السيوطي claims that Imam al-Nawawi wrote this word right here, an-najas, without the alif and lam in the original copy. But there is no copy of it that ever had it that way. Doesn't exist. I mean, I literally write, I have no idea what he's talking about. Unless he made a mistake in what he saw, because no one else ever even made this claim. It's actually kind of a weird claim, but no one ever made this claim. Okay, and we don't have Imam Nawawi's copy to make yani to go along with it. So, is Suyuti right, or did he make a mistake? All right, because there's plenty of times where Suyuti, he says he saw one thing and it was actually the other, and people, he's human, you know. At the end of the day, look at this. Al-Maqsid, look, Al-Imam al-Dimiri, he says, I saw this with Imam al-Nawawi's handwriting. Right? Look at this. Al-Imam al-Mahalli, وَلَوْ كَانَ لِمَقْصِدِهِ بِكَسْرِ الصَّادِ كَمَا ضَبَطَهُ الْمُصَنِّفِ, as the author himself had, did the tashkil for it. So, what I've been doing, off to the side every once in a while, I'll collect these statements, especially where we have the scholars actually saying, oh, I saw in his copy this. First, you want to start with the Daqa'iq, because that's the first commentary ever written on Minhaj. Then, after that, you want to go ahead and look for what other scholars say, because they are witnesses to that. All of these are Daqa'iq. What do we have? No, Daqa'iq. It's not only Daqa'iq. See, look at this. Here's Ibn al-Mulaqqin. صبغه أي بفتح الصاد كما ضبطه بخطه. ممتاز. مناخ الإبل بضم الميم كما ضبطه بخطه. يتجرد بضم الدال. تمام. So you have all of these quotes from Ibn al-Mulaqqin, right? After Ibn al-Mulaqqin, you have al-Damiri saying كما ضبطه المصنف بخطه. This is how the author did it. This is how the author did it, right? This is how the author did it. There's a Damiri for you, right? And he has, these people have large explanations on Minhaj. Look, Ibn Qadi Shuhbah, كما ضبطه بخطه, right? المصنف بخطه. تمام. So, I've collected most years from التحفة. I've collected pretty much every time that they've quoted Imam al-Nawawi's correcting. Look, al-Mughni. and النهاية by Imam al-Ramli. And I'm trying to go through everything that I can. Look, there's al-Mahalli with al-Qalyubi, there's Zarkashi, there is Ibn al-Mulaqqin in another one of his works, al-Qastalani in his manuscript copy. Off to the sides, he actually tells you this is how the author did it. There's another copy that we don't know exactly who it belongs to, but look off to the side next to words, he literally says, this is how the author did it as I'm rewriting it from his copy. This is how he had it. So these are beautiful, beautiful quotes and something I'm working on off to the side. Someday, 1 year, I'll get done with it. I'd say probably my most concern right now is trying to get my comments on Bushr al-Karim. I'm trying to get that done, so because a brother might translate it into English, and then this what I'm working on, which is Al-Imam al-Zarkashi's explanation. I started to do a little bit of recordings so of this, so everyone gets an opportunity to read through. I'm probably 2/3 of the way done. There's a couple little areas that I'm not done yet. So like I'm wrapping up Sujood al-Sahw and I have Tilawa. I think I have to do Janaiz after that. But if you go to Zakah, most of Zakah is already done. Siyam, I think I finished Siyam altogether, as you can see. Again, I'm not publishing is not my concern. When I'm done, put in a PDF and just send it to everyone so everyone can benefit from it. Now, this went quickly from an Iqna class to a Minhaj class. I did want to show something from al-Muharrar. Let me go to inshallah, bismillah. Well, it's all in the Shafi'i school, so hopefully, it's a benefit nevertheless, right? Let's go down here to wudu, because this is a very unique matter. Okay, look right here. He says, the first one, look, he says, النية فينوي رفع الحدث. See how he says al-hadath? But then if we go to Minhaj, which is an edit of al-Muharrar, right? And we go to wudu, look what he says here. Niyatu raf'i hadathin. What happened here is that he took away the alif and the lam. Why did he do that? Well, if we go to the wudu file, which you'll have this mas'ala there, you will have, should be in the, Allahumma salli Muhammad, it should be right here in the niyyah. In the file itself, if you utilize the Word document, you'll be able, I'll send the Word too, but you'll be able to see all different types of niyyahs that a person would be doing. So if we go right here, look at this. There's a total of 25 types of niyyah that a person might do. The one that I want to speak about right now, which is important, and that is, where'd it go? It's a person that has many different hadath upon him. Muhammad alayhi ahdath, I think I called it. Here we go. The intention of lifting a hadath, but if you have more than one hadath. The reason why they say niyatu raf'i hadathin is to refer to this mas'ala. If a person has a hadath upon them, okay, they really did it, but he intends something else, he's not negating that which is upon him. No, he's just mentioning something else. How would that impact? Okay, and I mentioned all of these awjuh here. Okay, and the mu'tamad is that if it's by accident, they're not really thinking about anything, it just happens, then that's okay. Why? لأن الأحداث تداخلت. This is what Ibn Hajar, Al-Ramli, Al-Khatib all say, because hadath is a concept, it's a block concept. Once you're in one, you're in all. It doesn't break away. Okay? But if you look to the other opinions, it says, no, his wudu is not accepted because every hadath is its own act. That was, it was told by Al-Baghawi, not that it was his opinion. The next one is that if he intends one thing and he does not negate anything else, يعني I only have this hadath upon me, okay? As long as he's not mentioning something else, actually mentioning it in his intention, that's fine. But if he does, then that's a problem. This was stated, told by Al-Mawardi al-Baghawi and Hujjat al-Islam al-Ghazali, as some of our ashab upheld it. The next wajh says, no, if he has more than one, then he should only intend the first of what he had done. So if we'll just say he had 3 hadath, 1, 2, and 3. So what the fourth opinion is stating is that he needs to intend number 1. Number 2, number 3 won't suffice anything. Then number 4 says, no, it's the other way around. And this was told by Ibn al-Sabbagh. So no, he's saying, no, you have to say number 3, or no, it doesn't count for anything. The correct opinion in the school is what? Is that any. Because the hadath concept is a block concept. You have one, then you have all. Tamam? That's why Imam al-Nawawi changed it from niyat raf' al-hadath to hadath. That way he can alert to you that al-hadath really is not a thing because it's a concept. It's not a one thing. That's why Imam al-Nawawi did that. He changed it between al-Muharrar and al-Minhaj. Tamam? Ya Allah, I just realized the time. Okay, so what we'll do is that we actually never read what Al-Qadi Hussein said. So we'll pick up right there from what Al-Qadi Hussein had said, Al-Qadi Hussein Al-Marwazi. And of course, I always recommend reading the introduction of Al-Qadi Hussein's Ta'liqa because it's an intro in Ilm al-Kalam, and he's from one of the early Shafi'i scholars. So a very beautiful introduction in his book. It's in his Shamila, by the way. But we'll stop here, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and let's go ahead and go to Al-Ghaya, bi'idhnillah, so that way we can utilize that. So I'll see everyone there, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.